Welcome back to the Life with the Browns. 4 words. One simple question. And just like that, 30 years of carefully constructed manipulation started to crumble. Why would he apologize for a lie? When Meri Brown's best friend, Jenn Sullivan, asked that question during the Sister Wives Season 20 tell-all, it didn't feel like commentary. It felt like a verdict. Because for the first time in a very long time, someone sitting on that stage wasn't emotionally entangled in decades of polygamous loyalty. Someone wasn't conditioned to excuse, justify, reinterpret, or soften Kody Brown's behavior. Jenn wasn't there to preserve family unity. She was there to protect her friend. And what she exposed wasn't an apology.
It was strategy.
Season 20 introduced what producers neatly labeled Kody's apology tour. On the surface, it looked like growth. A man reflecting, a husband acknowledging emotional neglect, favoritism, financial chaos. Viewers saw him visiting Janelle, Christine, and Meri, speaking softer, choosing words carefully, admitting mistakes. But something about it felt rehearsed. When Kody reached out to Meri, he claimed he wanted to come clean about something serious, the backdoor conversations he'd had with Janelle about selling Coyote Pass without Meri's knowledge. He admitted that he and Janelle had discussed cutting her out of a potential $15 million property deal. He confessed voluntarily.
No confrontation.
No evidence presented. No pressure applied. Just a confession. To Meri, the wife who spent 3 decades believing in him, defending him, waiting for scraps of affection that never truly came. And at first, she interpreted it as remorse.
Growth.
Honesty. Maybe even redemption. But Jenn Sullivan heard something else. Because here's the thing, timing tells the truth. By the time Kody made this confession, Coyote Pass had already been sold. Meri had already received her share. The deal was closed. The dust had settled. So why confess now? If the backdoor deal never fully materialized, if it was just a conversation that didn't result in action, if no paperwork was signed without her, then why admit it at all? That's when Jenn delivered the line that shifted the entire narrative. Why would he apologize for a lie? The studio went quiet. Because suddenly, the apology didn't look like accountability. It looked like positioning. Kody wasn't apologizing for what he did. He was controlling how Meri would interpret what Janelle did. Think about the structure of his confession. He didn't frame it as, "I betrayed you." He framed it as, "Janelle wanted to do this. I was pressured. I went along with it, but I didn't actually follow through." Even in remorse, he cast himself as reluctant. Even in confession, he shifted weight off his shoulders. He planted a seed of suspicion between 2 women who might otherwise compare notes. Because if Meri believes Janelle was the mastermind, she's less likely to unite with her in future negotiations. Less likely to question Kody's version of events. Less likely to see the bigger pattern. That's not repentance. That's preemptive damage control. And Jenn recognized it immediately. If he didn't actually do it, she implied, then the only reason to tell you now is to get ahead of someone else telling you first. It wasn't an apology tour. It was a race. A race to see who could frame the narrative first. A race to throw someone under the bus before they could return the favor. And Kody came prepared with a script. During the tell-all, Meri herself acknowledged something chilling. The apology felt like a twisted attempt to throw Janelle under the bus before she could throw him under it. But here's what makes the strategy even darker. Kody doesn't just throw his ex-wives under the bus. He makes sure they're driving it. By confessing selectively, he positions himself as transparent, honest, evolving. Look at me. I'm coming clean. At the same time, he quietly reframes Janelle as the instigator. He maintains plausible deniability. I never actually sold it without you. I didn't go through with it. I was just talking. Technically innocent. Emotionally manipulative. Because the real goal isn't truth. The real goal is division. When ex-wives mistrust each other, they don't unite. When they question each other's motives, they don't compare timelines. When they suspect betrayal within their own ranks, They don't look up and see who benefits from their separation.
And who benefits?
The man in the middle. Jenn said it plainly. This is what he does. He keeps the women in a constant state of subtle suspicion so they never fully align against him. Psychological warfare disguised as remorse. And the most unsettling part? It almost worked. For a moment, Meri saw it as growth. She wanted to believe it meant something. 30 years of emotional investment doesn't evaporate overnight. But one question cut through the fog. Why apologize for something that supposedly wasn't real? You don't confess to a ghost unless the ghost serves you. And in that single moment, Kody's carefully staged redemption arc cracked open. Because this wasn't about healing old wounds. It was about rewriting history before someone else got the microphone. And thanks to Jenn Sullivan, an outsider with nothing to lose and nothing to protect, the audience finally saw the pattern clearly. Not a man seeking forgiveness. A man securing control. And this time, the narrative slipped out of his hands. She was right. And the Coyote Pass sale proves it. If you really want to understand why Kody's so-called apology is manipulative, you have to rewind the tape. Because the backdoor deal wasn't some imaginary scenario he invented for dramatic effect. It happened. He said it himself. Months before the apology tour, months before the soft voice, the reflective tone, the "I've grown" narrative, Kody Brown sat on camera during the November 16, 2025 episode of Sister Wives and casually dropped a bomb. I got in this sale where I was like, backdoor deal almost with Janelle. Like, hey, we'll just sell it off from under these other two. No pressure.
No interrogation. No hostile questioning.
He volunteered that information. That wasn't rumor. That wasn't speculation. That was a confession. And Janelle backed it up. During that same episode, she confirmed that Kody had the legal authority to do exactly what he was suggesting. He told her, well, I could sell it without Meri's consent. And Janelle's response? Well, you could. Because legally, he could. The conversations were real. The possibility was real. The power imbalance was very real. Kody and Janelle discussed selling Coyote Pass without informing Meri, a property potentially worth millions, where Meri had a financial stake. That's not hypothetical betrayal. That's a strategic discussion about cutting someone out of their own asset. But here's the twist. They didn't go through with it. And according to Kody, the reason they didn't? Robyn objected. She allegedly told him it would look bad. That's what Jenn called it. And the more the tell-all unfolded, the clearer it became that this wasn't just tension between ex-wives. It was narrative engineering. At first, Meri sounded hurt.
Confused.
She admitted that during the Coyote Pass negotiations, it felt like Janelle was treating her the way Kody had treated her for most of their marriage, dismissive, cold, transactional. That statement landed heavy. But then Jenn did what no one else on that stage had consistently done before. She zoomed out. Because here's the real question, the one Jenn silently forced everyone to confront. Was Janelle truly mistreating Meri? Or was Kody carefully shaping that perception? When you line up the timeline, the villain edit starts to fall apart. Yes, Janelle hired a lawyer.
But why?
Because after years of delays, broken promises, and stalled decisions, she needed to protect her own financial interests. That's not manipulation. That's survival. When you've watched property sit in limbo while one person holds the legal power, hiring legal counsel isn't aggression, it's self-preservation. Yes, Janelle acknowledged that Kody had the authority to sell without Meri's consent. But she also explained that her lawyers had advised her about partition sales, a legal mechanism often used when co-owners can't agree. That's not scheming in the shadows. That's acknowledging reality when negotiations break down. Yes, she was frustrated. But frustration doesn't equal villainy. And what was Meri asking for? Equal division, transparency, clear communication, basic protections. Nothing radical, nothing predatory. So how did this morph into a narrative where Janelle looked like the aggressor and Kody looked like the reluctant middleman caught between difficult women? That's the pattern. Jenn saw it because she wasn't raised inside it. The pattern is simple. Create friction between the wives. Step in as the neutral mediator. Control the outcome. Blame whoever refuses to comply. Divide and conquer. For decades, it worked. During the marriage years, Kody would tell Christine that Robin needed extra care because she was struggling. Then he'd turn around and tell Robin that Christine was being selfish and unsupportive. Result?
Distrust.
Christine and Robin couldn't unite because each believed the other was the problem. He'd tell Janelle that Meri was impossible to work with. Then tell Meri that Janelle didn't respect her authority.
Result? Distance.
They stayed cordial, but never aligned strongly enough to challenge him financially or emotionally. And that space between them? That's where Kody thrived. Because as long as the wives were questioning each other, they weren't questioning him. Now, fast forward to the divorces. The marriages are over, but the strategy isn't. Janelle said it plainly during the tell-all. Kody always wants to act like he's such a victim. And she's right. In every chapter of this family's unraveling, Kody casts himself as the wounded party. When Christine left, she was selfish. When Janelle distanced herself, she was disloyal. When Meri struggled, she was demanding. It's never about his neglect, never about favoritism, never about power imbalance. It's always someone else's failure. Even his apology follows that script. He regrets things, but in a way that still centers him as misunderstood, pressured, unfairly judged. I almost did something wrong, but I didn't. I was influenced. I was caught in the middle. That's not ownership. That's reframing. And then came the moment that stripped away the polished image completely. The tension between Jenn and Kody had been simmering all season. But during the tell-all, it finally erupted. Host Sukanya Krishnan asked Jenn and Meri whether they believed Robin was submissive. Jenn didn't blink.
Ida.
And I feel like that works for Kody. The air shifted. The camera cut to Kody in his separate interview setup. And there it was, the mask slipping. His face flushed. His jaw tightened. She's full of, he snapped, unable to contain the anger. That reaction told its own story. Because Jenn wasn't attacking Robin's character. She was identifying a dynamic where Robin's deference reinforces Kody's authority, where disagreement is minimal, where loyalty is visible, where control goes unchallenged. And that dynamic benefits exactly one person, Kody. If Robin rarely pushes back publicly, Kody never has to negotiate. If she appears supportive no matter what, he can present their relationship as proof that he's not the problem. The other wives just couldn't make it work. Jenn didn't insult Robin. She exposed the system. And Kody's explosive reaction revealed just how close she was to the truth. Because the calm, in another explosive tell-all clip, Jenn and Meri are sitting side by side, reacting to yet another piece of messy Brown family business. And you can see it immediately. Meri is holding back. She's composed, controlled, careful. 30 years of conditioning written all over her face.
But Jenn?
Jenn has no filter. She doesn't swallow it. She doesn't sugarcoat it. She doesn't protect anyone. She explodes.
How dare they?
That is so wrong. I'm so mad. And in that moment, Jenn says what Meri has been trained not to say for 3 decades. Because, let's be honest, Meri wasn't just married into this family.
She was trained inside it.
Trained to prioritize unity over truth. Trained to protect Kody's image. trained to absorb hurt quietly and call it loyalty. Jenn is undoing that training in real time. She is giving voice to the anger Meri buried in the name of family culture. And viewers are watching something extraordinary unfold. This isn't just commentary. This is transformation. The end of the nice girl era. Throughout season 20, we've watched Meri Brown change, slowly at first, then all at once. And the catalyst?
Jenn Sullivan.
In an October 2025 episode, Jenn sat down with Meri for what she jokingly called lessons. But these weren't lighthearted pep talks. They were deprogramming sessions. The mission? Stop accommodating Kody. Start asserting yourself. Jenn looked Meri in the eyes and asked the question no one else has ever dared to ask her so directly. How long is it going to take for you to realize he's not who you thought he was? Meri admitted she expected to stop playing nice about 6 weeks after the Coyote Pass sale finalized. 6 weeks. Jenn wasn't having it. It's time to end the nice girl era, she told her. Because continuing to be accommodating only benefits one person.
Kody.
Then came the coaching. You do not control me, Jenn instructed. Meri repeated it, softly, smiling. Less smile, Jenn corrected. Again. Stronger this time. They practiced more phrases.
Direct.
Unfiltered. Bold. Where's my money? And with every repetition you could see it, Meri getting stronger. The nervous laughter fading. The decades of suppressed anger finally surfacing. At one point, Jenn looked at her and said, "That one came from deep in your soul. I'm very proud of you." And that right there? That's real friendship. Not the kind that keeps you small to preserve a man's ego. Not the kind that convinces you to stay in a loveless marriage for appearances. Not the kind that asks you to accept crumbs and call it devotion. Real friendship tells you the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Now, let's talk about something else that happened, something far more calculated. Kody's apology to Meri about the so-called backdoor deal. On the surface, it looked humble, transparent, honest. But look closer. What did he actually accomplish? First, he got ahead of the narrative. By confessing voluntarily, he controlled how the story was told. He framed it as something he almost did. A mistake he considered but didn't follow through on. Not something he actively planned. Not something he was prepared to execute. He subtly shifted the tone from, "I orchestrated this," to, "I was pressured into considering it." And who did he position as the aggressor?
Janelle.
He emphasized that she was pushing him, pressuring him, forcing the sale. Suddenly, he wasn't the architect. He was the reluctant participant. Except here's the reality no one can ignore. Kody held the legal power. He had the authority. He had the control. And yet, in one carefully structured apology, he reframed himself as the man caught in the middle. That's not confession. That's narrative management. And the difference matters. Because while Meri is learning to say, "You do not control me," Kody is still trying to control how history remembers him. But season 20 feels different. The nice girl era is ending. And when Meri stops smiling through the pain, that's when the real story begins. Now, let's talk about what Kody really did. He didn't just apologize. He divided. By confessing to Meri privately about the so-called backdoor deal, he created distance between Meri and Janelle. Think about the psychology of that. The moment Meri hears, "Janelle was pressuring me," a seed gets planted. Even if Janelle denies it, even if it's exaggerated, even if it's completely reframed, the suspicion is there. And suspicion is all Kody needs. Because once the women start questioning each other, they stop comparing notes. They stop uniting. They stop realizing they've been navigating the same manipulation from the same source. And then there's Robin. Notice how carefully he protected her. He claimed Robin was the one who stopped him. The moral compass. The voice of reason. The wife who said, "No, we can't do that." That wasn't accidental. That elevates Robin's image. That reinforces the idea that she is the ethical center of the family. And it deepens his dependence on her, because now she's not just his favorite, she's his savior. But here's the most strategic part of all. Kody apologized for something he technically didn't do. He didn't sell the property without consent. So, he apologized for the consideration of it. What he avoided addressing. Trying to force Meri to sign an NDA. Delaying the sale for years. Keeping his ex-wife's money tied up. Creating financial instability. Favoring Robin in decision after decision. That's not oversight. That's calculated. It's genius in the most disturbing way possible. Because he's not apologizing. He's rewriting history. And the apology tour? That's the PR campaign to sell the new version. The real villain, let's be clear. The tell-all is revealing something viewers have sensed for years. The villain in every version of this story isn't Janelle. It isn't Meri. It's not even Robin, though she's certainly benefited from the system. It's Kody. He structured the property deeds to maintain ultimate control. He stalled the sale for years while his ex-wife's money sat locked in land they couldn't access. He tried to pressure Meri into signing an NDA. He admitted on camera that he considered selling without her consent. He blamed Janelle for pressuring him, despite holding all the legal power. And months after the sale closed, he's still trying to control the narrative. That's not leadership. That's manipulation. Janelle wanted her money. That's not villain behavior. That's survival after years of financial entanglement. Meri wanted transparency and equal treatment. That's not villain behavior. That's basic fairness. Robin wanted to protect her image. That's opportunistic, yes. But it's not the root cause. Kody is the root cause. He created a system where only he held power. He maintained that system through guilt, fear, spiritual authority, and emotional triangulation. And when the system collapsed, he blamed everyone but himself. The apology tour is just the latest evolution of that blame shifting. Christine saw it first of all the reactions to the backdoor deal and the apology performance. Christine's was the most cutting. This is a perfect example of why our family broke apart. She wasn't talking about the land. She was talking about the pattern. The pattern of secret conversations. The pattern of playing wives against each other. The pattern of positioning himself as the victim while orchestrating the chaos. Christine recognized it years ago. That's why she left first. She didn't wait for an apology. She didn't wait for change. She didn't wait for the property to sell. She didn't wait for finances to untangle. She walked away. And now, from the stability of her marriage to David Woolley, she can see the cycle clearly. He's doing to Meri and Janelle what he did to her for years, making them doubt themselves, making them question each other, making them feel like they're overreacting, when he's the one creating the instability. Christine's perfect example comment is her quiet way of saying, "I saw this coming, and this is why I left." And honestly,
She's right.
the ghost story, then Jenn Sullivan said something during the tell-all that cut straight through the fog. The backdoor deal wasn't some secret conspiracy between Kody and Janelle. It was a ghost story, a crisis Kody invented, something scary enough to keep the ex-wives from ever fully trusting each other again. A ghost story is designed to isolate, to create fear, to keep people from comparing experiences. Because when they compare notes, the illusion collapses. And that may be the most important shift of season 20. For the first time, the wives aren't just reacting individually. They're starting to see the pattern. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. And that's when the real power shifts. Because here's the one thing that would terrify Kody more than anything: Meri and Janelle sitting down at the same table and comparing notes. Not emotionally, financially. What happens if they pull out bank statements? What happens if they calculate exactly how much each of them contributed to Coyote Pass? What happens if they compare that to how the property was titled? What if they trace decades of financial decisions and realize there's a pattern, and that pattern consistently benefits Kody and Robin? What if they hire lawyers together? What if they present a united legal front? That's the nightmare. Because division has always been the strategy. So he had to prevent unity. And the way he prevented it was subtle, not with screaming, not with threats, but with suspicion. The backdoor deal, confession, wasn't transparency.
It was a ghost story.
A carefully planted narrative designed to make Meri side-eye Janelle. And for a moment, it almost worked, until Jenn asked one simple question, and suddenly the ghost didn't look so scary anymore. Janelle's denial, truth or semantics. Then comes Janelle's bombshell in the tell-all trailer. There was no backdoor deal. Wait, what? Kody admitted it on camera. Janelle acknowledged he could legally sell without Meri. So, how can she now say there was no deal? The answer isn't contradiction. It's semantics. Janelle isn't denying conversations happened. She's denying that it qualifies as a deal. Because in her mind, a deal implies execution. It implies something finalized.
Signed.
Completed. And since the property wasn't sold without Meri's consent, she defines it as discussions, considerations, legal consultations, not a deal. Notice how that logic mirrors Kody's. I didn't do it, so it doesn't count. But here's what Jenn understands instinctively. Considering something immoral still reveals character. You don't get integrity points for not following through on your worst impulse. And confessing the impulse as proof of honesty? That's manipulation dressed up as vulnerability. The puppet question, classic deflection, then Kody tries something else. He attacks Janelle's credibility. Janelle plays me all the time because I loved her and might still. That line alone reframes him as the emotional victim. Then he pivots to humor. What is it, Janelle? Am I Robin's puppet or is she mine? It sounds clever. It sounds like he's exposing contradiction. But it's a false dichotomy. Relationships aren't binary. Robin can be submissive in some areas and manipulative in others. Kody can be controlling in some dynamics and influenced in others. Both things can exist at once. But by forcing it into a joke, which is it? He reduces complexity into something dismissible. It's classic deflection. Turn the accusation into comedy. Make the critic look inconsistent. Avoid answering the actual question. And once again, accountability slips through his fingers. The catfishing card. Robin's low blow just when you think it can't get more toxic. Robin brings up the catfishing scandal. A decade-old wound. When asked why Meri doesn't trust her, Robin points to Meri's online conversations from 2015.
Think about that.
A scandal that happened when Meri was emotionally abandoned. A scandal she has apologized for repeatedly. A scandal that has already been dissected, relived, and weaponized for years. And Robin pulls it out again.
Why?
Because it shifts the focus. Instead of discussing why Meri doesn't trust her now, the NDA situation, the financial favoritism, the encouragement to stay in a loveless marriage, Robin drags the conversation back to Meri's past mistake. It's strategic. It reframes Meri as unreliable. It distracts from current behavior. It avoids accountability. And Christine's response cuts straight through it. This is a perfect example of why our family broke apart.
She's not talking about catfishing.
She's talking about deflection, weaponized trauma, refusal to own behavior. That's why they're gone. What this reveals about Kody's psychology, here's the most fascinating part. Kody genuinely believes he's the victim. He truly thinks that admitting he considered doing something unethical makes him brave. He believes his ex-wives should appreciate that he didn't follow through. That level of self-perception is staggering. In his mind, he's the patriarch who tried his best. He's the man overwhelmed by demanding wives. He's the honest one who confesses flaws. He's the victim of circumstances. But in reality, he built a system where he held all the power. He structured financial control in his favor. He favored one wife openly. He manipulated dynamics to keep others isolated. And now, even in apology, he's managing perception. When Jenn asked, why would he apologize for a lie? She exposed the core issue. Because in his mind, it's not a lie. It's his narrative. He's always the protagonist in impossible circumstances. And the apology tour? It's an attempt to get everyone else to accept that script. Meri's turning point, but something has shifted. For 30 years, Meri stayed quiet. She absorbed blame. She tried to be the good wife.
Now,
she's learning to say, where's my money? And the fact that saying that makes her anxious tells you everything about the conditioning she's breaking. She was trained to believe that asking for fairness was aggression. Jenn is undoing that. The tell-all isn't just drama. It's Meri's coming out moment. She may still keep her expression neutral on national TV. She may still say, I can't react the way I want to. But the internal shift has already happened. She sees it now. And once you see manipulation clearly, it loses power. The most powerful thing Jenn gave Meri was an outrage. It was perspective. For decades, Meri was told, you're difficult. You're demanding. You're the problem. When you hear something long enough, you internalize it. But Jenn held up a mirror and said, you're not difficult. You were mistreated. You're not demanding. You wanted fairness. You're not irrational. You were reacting to chaos. That mirror is dangerous. Because a Meri who trusts her own perception cannot be gaslit. And a Meri who can't be gaslit cannot be controlled. The final verdict. So, what was the apology tour really about? Control. Control of the narrative. Control of perception. Control of legacy. He didn't apologize because he was remorseful. He apologized because the old system collapsed. The wives left. The hierarchy broke. He needed a new strategy. So he rebranded. He'll apologize for being distant, for not showing up, for being flawed, but not